Welcome back to the Badger247 show. I'm Matt Perkins, joined once again by Badger247 writer John McNamara. Nick's on the road this week. He'll be back next week, but don't worry about that. We've still got me and John, the OGs of the show, and we are excited to be here today, John. It is great to see you as always.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Very good to see you too.
So yeah, we're doing a little two-man show here today, but we've been getting plenty of questions on the message boards. If you're not already subscribed to Badger247.com, what on earth are you doing? Make sure you're over there now to get the best message boards, the best information, the best articles anywhere in the Badger universe. The big question on everyone's mind, or a lot of people's mind right now, is the status of defensive tackle Drayden Pavey. We'll be honest with you. We don't know. We don't know what's going on there. We don't have any more information than you guys do right now. So we appreciate everyone tuning in and asking about that. But the truth is, we don't know. As soon as we know more information, we will definitely be telling you about it, both here on this show and in the message boards. That's why you got to subscribe to Badger247.com, John.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And, there's with a situation like that, I mean, it's a little delicate, right? Where a kid who has signed with you is currently not on campus. And a lot of times the same people that you reach out to aren't in really a position to speak on some of those type of things. So again, like you said, Matt, I don't have anything to put out there to report. And I'm not sitting on anything because I truly don't know what that situation is right now. I think if you looked at EJ Whitlow's Twitter or X, he put out something. He had the guys up at his house. Pavey wasn't one of them. So, you can kind of go whatever direction you want with that. And I think maybe we'll get an update. It might have to be when Luke Fickell speaks at Big Ten Media Days. I think there's a lot of other things on his mind likely. So we'll see with that. A player that I think a lot of people liked, a player that I think fits what Wisconsin wants to do moving forward in terms of those bigger bodies up front. But, it's not like something that's going to devastate the 2025 season, but certainly a question I think is pertinent and a question that fans want answers to, just not able to do that at this point right now.
A guy who's going to be a little bit more pertinent to the 2025 season is cornerback Nyzier Fourqurean. His status has been up in the air for a long time on all the 6th-year stuff and with that, John. But does it look like he's on track to be eligible this fall?
That's another one. That one is tough to say, right? And I'm not a lawyer. I know you're not a lawyer. It's tough to understand, the workings of that. Could this be something that just continues to be delayed, and then he plays his season, then he's done, and we're no one has to worry about it? I guess the most recent info that we got, and it was just kind of a guy who knows that process a little bit better on Twitter that we were following, it didn't seem to be the most optimistic outlook for Nyzier Fourqurean. But again, we don't have anything official. And I know that Wisconsin is certainly planning to have him play this season. And if, Luke Fickell was asked about in the spring, and he almost seems insulted by the question of, yes, he's good. We're good. We got no questions about it. We're moving forward. So until I hear otherwise, until other people hear otherwise, my expectation is that Nyzier Fourqurean plays in 2025. Now, the second piece to that, his loss would be devastating. You feel very good about your corner room right now. To me, it's thin only in experience. But if you can put Fourqurean, Ricardo Hallman, and Jameer Latimer on the field and play them a really good chunk of reps and keep them healthy, I do think that's a position of strength. Now, if Fourqurean goes, then those dominoes really hit that position. Then you're probably talking Emilio Agard there. Then Austin Brown, to me, likely moves back to the slot, so Latimer could play a true corner position. He's just one of the most important people on this roster right now. I think you'll see that later in the month when we do our most important Badgers. I think Fourqurean's for sure in the top 5, the top 10, maybe the top 5. But he is an instrumental piece to Wisconsin's success this year. It would be a very big blow, in my opinion, if they were to lose him due to a legal, whatever you want to call it. Snafu. Sure.
I'll go with that. I think that, fingers crossed for Badger fans, that doesn't happen. If you do see that happen, I could also see Deani Hill getting a lot of meaningful snaps as well. The Miami transfer. I think he's the one other guy to sort of look out for there in the cornerback room, on top of the guys you already mentioned, like Agard. Jameer Scott could be a name that bubbles up maybe for the slot. I would imagine him more in the slot than as an outside corner, but you could see him out there somewhere. But like you mentioned, John, I think if he is eligible, assuming he's eligible, that's a huge win because that defensive backfield is the strength of the defense as it stands right now. But, the future of that defense, still has some flux in question. One of their top safety targets, Joel Combe, just committed to Tennessee the other day. So Nick Reddish still on the board, looking like a Notre Dame lean at the moment. Where does Wisconsin go at safety here, John?
That's a good question. Like you said, you saw the two teammates from Georgia come off the board, one to Missouri, one to Tennessee. Of those two, Tony Forney and Joel Combe, I think Combe was a bigger priority for them. Some of the staff went after a little bit with a little bit more effort and vigor, I would say. Reddish, I believe, is set to announce today, I guess, if you're watching this on Friday, set to announce on Friday, I believe. All signs kind of point to Notre Dame there, although Wisconsin's in that top group. Wisconsin got him on campus for an official visit. After that decision, I think Wisconsin will obviously know a bit more, but to me, that's a position that now goes into the fall. I do think they want to add a second corner, a second safety to this class, and it's a position that likely gets addressed in the fall, only because there's no next guy that you can point to. They've seen a number of guys kind of come off the board. A Chase Geeter who went to Syracuse. So a lot of guys that they were in on, a lot of guys that they got on campus, a lot of guys that they kind of struck out on. So they do need a piece to add to Zach Taylor at that safety room. But I think that's going to be something that we see addressed potentially in the fall.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it is interesting here for Wisconsin because they can afford to be, I think, a little picky because safety, as far as it goes, like they already have one really solid option here in this 2026 class, and they've done well in the last couple classes at safety. But I'm personally still more worried about cornerback. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know that I'm always very concerned about cornerbacks and cornerback play. So I think that for me, that would be the top priority for Wisconsin in the remainder of this class. You mentioned one more safety. Any other positions, John, you think that the staff is looking for to fill out this 2026 recruiting class?
Yeah, sitting at 15 right now, likely gets to 19, 20. I've said it, you've said it on this show a million times. It's fluid. There's never a set number. You've got some areas crossed off, but, in terms of spots, I think they'd like one more offensive lineman. That's not a need, but I don't want to call it a luxury. I think if there is someone out there that makes sense, they'll go after him to be that third offensive lineman in this class. Quarterback's taken care of, running back's taken care of, receivers taken care of. You go to the other side of the ball, you'd like to get an edge, right? I mean, Carmelo Reed decommits. That was a pretty big blow for the staff. They missed out on some guys who took officials. You'd like to get an edge, another corner, another safety, maybe someone else, another D lineman. But again, they kind of moved on from that position in June because of the guys they had committed. So I think 4 or 5 more guys make sense. An edge, an offensive lineman, 2 defensive backs, and maybe a guy that we're just not talking about, or position we're just not talking about right now. If you've been watching, we've kind of projected this class isn't going to be huge, right? Like I said, I think gets to 19, 20. Some spots, more so than usual, spots available in the fall. Usually it's kind of 1 or 2 guys the last handful of cycles. It'll be a little bit more this year. So it'll just be that much more interesting for recruiting fans to follow who pops up on officials in the fall at those spots.
Anyone from inside the state that you could see making a big jump and getting an offer senior year?
I think there's always guys that are kind of on the cusp. Someone that we saw that could be a position of need is Michael Farr, a kid from Racine Case. He committed to South Dakota State, but he camped at Wisconsin. I got to know his recruitment pretty closely. Some guys that involved with him that I know pretty well. He is a unique athlete that I think would fit well at a position of need for Wisconsin. A guy that, like I said, projects to safety. I think he could play slot for you if you needed him to. And honestly, he could probably play corner if you wanted him to. So he's a name that kind of comes to mind because he's at a position of need. Some people might think, could Wisconsin flip Gavin Meyer from Minnesota to Wisconsin? Probably not one I see happening. Maybe one that Wisconsin doesn't explore either, with the way that he's kind of made it known that he's going to go to Minnesota. Anything can kind of happen in recruiting, but Farr's the type of kid, because of the position he plays, because of his versatility, I think Wisconsin could take a really close look at those first 3 games from his senior film at Racine Case and potentially re-explore that commitment. But they, like I said, they were able to see him firsthand at camp in June. And, that goes a long way in your evaluation with Wisconsin, just about every other program out there that does that.
Let's switch to guys who are on the team right now. And there have been a couple key injuries from the spring that we're just looking for some updates on. People have been asking about on those boards. Trech Kekahuna, Darian Dupree missed time in the spring. So did Mason Reiger and Tommy Turbo Heiberger, who's now moved from edge to off-ball backer. Any updates on any of these guys? Will they all be good to go for fall camp once they head out to Platteville?
Yeah, when you're providing this type of information, you're checking in, like, nothing is official, right? So Wisconsin's won't officially say, yes, in July, this player X is cleared to play, or yes, player X is not cleared to play. So it's kind of checking in with people. Yeah, right. So I think the one that you could say for sure is Kevin Heywood, right? He's not going to play this year due to that injury. Mason Reiger, I think if you follow his Instagram page, which if you need a little pick-me-up, you could watch him. Yeah, he's very positive, inspirational. He says he's cleared based on his Instagram, right? We'll see what happens in fall camp. I don't have any reason to believe that he's not cleared or not ready to go. Certainly someone that you're rooting for, right? Who has battled these injuries. I think he missed all of last season. Now he missed spring camp for Wisconsin. To me, though, I don't know, maybe this is the pessimistic side of me. I think anything that you get from him this year is just kind of a bonus, because you don't really know where he's at. Now, he could come out in fall camp, light the world on fire, play a ton of reps, and have a great senior year. I think Wisconsin would obviously love that. And a guy that I think you would root for is a 6-year guy who's battled some injuries. I guess we just don't know yet. Dupree and Kekahuna, they seem like they're just kind of nicked up in the spring. I don't envision those to be lingering injuries that get into fall, right? Because they shut them down in the spring. You got all summer, you get to the fall, which I guess is kind of creeping up on us right now. End of July, they're going to get going. So those, to me, don't seem like injuries that'll go into the fall. But again, nothing official. I think we'll get a better idea of that when those guys get to Platteville.
I mean, we're 7 weeks out from the opener right now. It is coming up quick.
Quicker than I would like. I think you'd like to enjoy this summer, but yeah, I mean, it's right around the corner, right? They're going to get going in the end of July. Got media days coming up in Vegas.
Are you going to Vegas, John? Are you going for media days?
No, we're sending Nick. Nick's our traveler.
Man, he's on the road right now. Make sure that you're keeping up with all of his coverage. He's doing some great stuff, especially along the lines of basketball right now as well, down there in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
You can get me to Chicago. You can get me in Indianapolis. A little tougher to get me out to Vegas.
Can I get you to Nashville?
I like Nashville. I was there a couple summers ago. Good time. You can get me into Nashville without a doubt.
Well, maybe someday they'll have Big Ten Media Days in Nashville, but I highly doubt that. We get SEC Media Days here, though, sometimes. That's a lot of fun. But, it's nothing like Big Ten Media Days. I think that the guys are excited to be out there for it. What is it? Riley Mallman? Is it Riley Mallman, Daryl Peterson, and Jake Renfro, if I'm not mistaken? Am I missing one of them?
Renfro, Edwards, and Ricardo Hallman, I believe.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Those three will go. Yeah, I mean, kind of a good indicator of who you think your captains might be, who's going to represent the program. I'm not going to say that those three guys will be your captains, but like I said, doing this for almost 20 years, a lot of times the guys you're bringing to, I was going to say Chicago, Indiana, Las Vegas, those guys will end up being, who your captains are, guys you rely on, guys, that are the voice in the locker room. So we'll see what happens there. But obviously 3 seniors that played a lot of football, not necessarily all at Wisconsin, but they've got a lot of experience, and they'll be down there representing Wisconsin at media days.
Definitely. Well, we mentioned Nick's on the road covering basketball. 2 future Badgers playing for the New Zealand U-19 team were playing in the U-19 World Cup. I think it was FIBA U-19 World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. John, they got a lot of great experience and some good exposure out there. What'd you see from the future Badgers who were competing?
Yeah, I was able to catch a few games, and the one I guess I watched most closely because it was most interesting to me is when they played the United States. I think that was in the semis. Lot of athleticism, a lot of length, a lot of everything that the USA had going for it, and that game was really never much in question. But it was really good to watch those two future Badgers and how they might fit in Wisconsin's offense, and I guess more so why Wisconsin recruited them. Everything is kind of trending towards what Greg Gard and I would say more so Kurt Penny want to do on that offensive end. Guys that strong with the basketball, and then probably the biggest thing, they can shoot it, right? And I think you saw in little spurts guys who could create their own shot too. They got to the rim a little bit. They had a little trouble, like I said, with the United States length. Couple guys, I think Jones got to the rim a handful of times, had his shot put back at him. So, but like you said, Matt, I mean, that is invaluable experience. The bulk of that roster is on campus right now and going through those summer workouts, but Wisconsin's waiting for, I think, one of those guys is a 26, so he's not going to be there for a while, right? So
Hayden Jones will be here this fall.
Correct. So he'll be there as soon as this wraps up. He'll be there quickly, and then the big guy, Belousquist, I think is still playing in some sort of same format, or I'm not sure exactly what tournament, but they expect him within the next week or whenever that wraps up too. So that international experience, not only at Wisconsin, but a number of programs. I mean, you look at a program like Illinois. I mean, they are just kind of feasting on these guys who have that pro experience. And I guess you're more so of a known commodity or a proven commodity. There's more film, there's more upper level coaching, all that goes into it. So this international movement in college basketball, I certainly don't think this is the end of it. I think it's just more programs are going to get involved with these kids because there's a bigger body of work. They're older, right? And that's something that Greg Gard wants to do: get older, stay older. I think these guys help you do that.
Yeah, let's talk Hayden Jones a little bit more. Do you see him being a contributor this season for Greg Gard and that basketball team?
I think he's got a chance, right? Him and Zach Kinzinger. You look at who's going to be that second ball handler behind Boyd, who I do think is going to eat up a ton of minutes, going to handle the ball a ton. Obviously, Blackwell has proven he can do it. I think Andrew Rohde could handle the ball if you needed him to, but as maybe that next option outside of guys that are in that rotation, I think Jones could do it for you if you wanted him to, although he may be more of a two guard. Kinzinger can play point guard. Now, when I've talked to him, he said, I'm a combo guard, and I think that certainly holds true. He handled the ball a lot at De Pere, a little bit with Team Hero as well. So that's something that if you asked him to do that, I think he'd be more than comfortable. I just don't see guys redshirting a ton too, right? Like, you're going to put all this work into these guys, everything with the transfer portal, everything that's going on with college basketball. Like, if you are ready to contribute, you're going to go out there and they're going to give you that opportunity to do that. I think Kinzinger plays. Jones, I'm just kind of going off what you've seen on TV, right? I do think that he has a skill set. He's a little bit older. I think he could find a role on this team. But if you're talking about both of them playing, you have 5 guys you feel good about in the starting lineup: Janicki, Carrington, Gray. I mean, now you're talking about 10 guys. They're not going to have a 10-man rotation, but it's an exciting group to work with. It's going to be really exciting to see. Once they get rolling in the winter here with, practices and what the media can see and how that rotation will look in just a couple of weeks here. I mean, that season's probably right on the way too, Matt.
What do you think is his biggest strength?
I think this is going to sound like corny, but like that feel for the game stood out to me. A guy that understands what he's doing out there, coming off those screens, being able to get his shot up. Again, he's not a guy that's going to jump out of the gym, but he's a guy that was targeted by Kurt Penny as this guy's going to fit really well in what we want to do here. So, high basketball IQ, and I get it. Like, those are the corny comments that you make. First guy in the gym, last guy to leave, all type of stuff. But like, truly when I watched him play against the United States in a couple other games during that stretch there, the feel for the game stood out to me. And I don't know, that's something that you can measure, but I think it's something that, Greg Gard saw, Kurt Penny saw, and it's a big reason why he's headed to Wisconsin soon.
Well, excellent. Well, if you are interested in keeping up on all of the news with not just the basketball team, but everything Wisconsin athletics, you need to be heading over and subscribing to Badger247.com. You get the show, you get the message boards, you get the info, you get a whole lot more than that. So make sure you are heading over there and subscribing. Make sure you're subscribing here to the YouTube page. Give us a comment. Let us know what you want to hear about more. We'll be back again next week with Nick Osen once he is back from his sojourn to the Southeast. I'm hoping he stops here in Nashville with me to grab a meal, maybe eat some hot chicken. We know Nick loves to eat. Not saying anything, but Nick does love to eat. So we will definitely make sure that happens. We will make sure that we continue to give you the best coverage here of everything Badger athletics over at Badger247.com. Like I said, subscribe, rate, review, unsubscribe, resubscribe, re-rate, re-review, all that good stuff. We'll be back again next week, taking your questions, breaking down everything that's happening in Wisconsin athletics. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on those message boards.
And one more thing, man, I got to let you know about this deal we got going on, 50% off. There are some really fun, exciting, good things going on at Badger247. So I said, the deal's on the front page, 50% off right now. Nick's out there. He's grinding. There are very few guys that are watching AAU basketball right now and covering it. We got very fortunate to have Nick out there. So please take a look at his coverage. He is, I don't think he's traveling with the Wisconsin coaching staff, but he's not far behind them. He is following them every single place that they go, every gym that they go into, probably every Diet Coke that they crack along the way. Nick Osen will be there. No one's going to have that type of coverage. Find it at Badger247 and get it for a really good price.
Really good price. Again, head over to Badger247.com. You will find the deal. And with that, we're out of here for this time, and we'll catch you next time. And between then, we'll be on those message boards. John, me, Nick, Payne, we're always around. So drop us your questions. Let us know what you think here in the comments, and we will catch you all next time.